It is now 7 o'clock. The meeting will come to order. I'm Grace Lesbrance, Cascade Township Supervisor. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Kessel.
Here.
Treasurer Pierce.
Here.
Trustee McDonald.
Here.
Trustee Shipley.
Present.
Trustee Nordhook.
Here.
Clerk Slater. Here. Supervisor Lesbrance.
Here. Thank you. Please rise, if possible, for the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion or discussion for approval of tonight's agenda?
Shipley moves to approve the agenda. Second.
It's a motion by Trustee Shipley, supported by Trustee Nordhook to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Do we need to do a roll call?
If you like.
Well, I couldn't tell if it passed or failed.
It failed.
Let's just do the roll call to make sure. I think you're
Trustee
right.
Kessel.
No.
Treasurer Pierce.
No.
Trustee McDonald.
No.
Trustee Shipley.
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook.
Yes.
Clerk Slater. No. Supervisor Lesbrance.
Yes. So the motion failed. We haven't had this before.
That was the amended agenda, so we can make a motion to proceed with the original agenda.
I make a motion, we proceed with the original agenda that we were given last Friday.
Support.
So this board doesn't want to hear the Planning Commission's finding on the Round Hill tonight. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right.
Second.
So it's a motion by who?
I made the motion.
It's a motion by Trustee Kessel, supported by Clerk Slater, to amend the amended agenda to take out the Round Hill Subcommittee Planning Commission portion of tonight's presentation. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee McDonald.
Yes.
Treasurer Pierce.
Yes.
Trustee Kessel.
Yes.
Trustee Shipley.
No.
Trustee Nordhook.
No.
Clerk Slater. Yes. Supervisor Lesbrance.
No. Motion carried, and we will hear from the planning commissioners at the first meeting in January. Thank you for coming tonight. Article 4, presentations. We'll lead off tonight on a high note. We've got our fire department here to recognize some quick thinking local heroes and share this great story. We are so proud to have all of you tonight. Thank you. Come on up wherever you'd like.
Good evening, and thank you to the board for allowing us to recognize a very special group of people tonight. Often we use the phrase, you saved my life, and in this case, that's exactly what happened. On October 21st, at approximately 9:20 a.m., Cascade Fire Department was dispatched to our Daily Bread Ministries for a female patient experiencing abnormal breathing. This call was quickly upgraded to a cardiac arrest. When we arrived at the scene, we found staff from our Daily Bread, performing high quality CPR and already had an AED applied to the patient. Staff had already delivered 2 shocks with the AED. Cascade Fire took over patient care, and an additional 2 shocks were delivered by the AED. Patient care continued as additional units from Airport Fire, Life EMS, Ambulance, and Kent County Sheriff's Office arrived on scene. The patient was transported by Life EMS to the hospital for further treatment. After a few days in the hospital, many tests and other procedures, I am happy to tell you the patient was released from the hospital. I'm even happier to tell you that Barb Smith is here tonight. Barb, you want to stand up? And she's accompanied by her niece, Diana Burkhead. I'm sorry. Without the immediate medical care from the Our Daily Bread Ministries first response team, this outcome may not have been so possible. In addition to the first response team members who are being recognized tonight, we have members from Our Daily Bread Ministries executive team sporadically placed throughout the room here, and Cascade fire staff that responded to the call, with the exception of Chief Majors, firefighter Craig Deering, firefighter Zach Christian, and firefighter David Lindsmuth were all on the call that day. And the duty crew in the back is back there representing today's crew. I will now call up the first response team members to the front, where Fire Chief Adam Majors will present them with certificates and challenge coins in recognition of their heroic efforts. So, members, when your name's called, please come on up. Carlene Schmidt. Yeah. It's your turn to shine. Lisa Luckenbaugh. Mike Hoatland. Mark Vanderhyde. Last but not least tonight, Alicia Collier. It's kind of ironic tonight because we've had a blossoming relationship with Our Daily Bread Ministries. We have recently been introduced to Mike King from Our Daily Bread Ministries, and we've done a lot of training, inspections, fire extinguisher training, and getting them up to speed and us up to speed with them. So we appreciate that relationship very much. It just so happened that a week or two later, we were there to help them out. So you, Barb, don't have to call in a week after you go into cardiac arrest and say you won't be there. Okay? It was kind of understood at that point. And actually, I'm going to call Barb up too, and probably her niece come up, and we'll take the picture too. Yeah. You guys want to come on over here? And
Everybody crowd in up front.
Thank you to the board for allowing us to do this tonight.
Hunter, however you.
Where do you want us?
Well, actually, let's go over there.
Right there?
Or we can. Yeah, let's play over there. So let's go kind of right in this area. Awesome, ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Cool.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Lieutenant. Article 5, public comments. This is the time to speak on anything on the agenda except the items we have already set for public hearing, which is the Laterno PUD ordinance, and also the proposed 2022 general special budget, or excuse me, funds budget. If you'd like, please come to the podium. State your name and address for the record. We've got a full agenda tonight, so we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes, and we will have the timer.
My name is Don Foss, and I live at 7374 Gratian Drive. My comments and questions are going to be directed to the supervisor. I'd like you to tell us, as a survey form was being written, how many residents of Cascade Township were asked to provide input for sections 9 and 10 of the survey form. In other words, who is responsible for the 23 items in section 9 and the 16 items in section 10? Can you tell us?
Yes, we had a strategic plan steering committee, which was a group of residents that are volunteering on different boards and commissions. And they came up with that collectively with our, the firm that's in charge of the process.
Okay.
That was not myself, if that's
We
what you're
have
insinuating.
a pretty good cross-section of people from Cascade Township. I'd like a show of hands of anyone who was asked to provide input for sections 9 and 10 of the survey form. Would you please raise your hand? So we have one. That's not a very good representation, is it, of the township? And you're putting together a strategic plan for the township, and you had one person in this group that was asked. You know, I got a quote from your, I want to quote from your letter in the summer connections of the township. It said this: your thoughts and opinions early in the process are essential to ensuring the strategic plan is meaningful. You know, that went out to all the township residents, and you only got one that responded to that. And you said you had a committee? I can't, you know. Okay, I have another question and comment. If this strategic plan for the township, I want to ask why the following were included in the survey form. Lack of township response to resident questions and concerns. Not
45
enough
seconds left.
government transparency, not enough financial accountability for every dollar spent, building staff and board culture for being transparent. Why were these included in the survey?
The same answer I gave you. The strategic plan steering committee, which was made up of a handful of residents and different people in the commissions and committees, as well as the professional company that I believe Clerk Slater, Trustee Kessel, and Trustee Nordhook selected. So
Okay.
You'll have to ask them directly.
I've been a resident of this township for 50 years.
10
I have
seconds.
never, in the surveys that I've participated in, I've never seen these included in the survey. And if you're going to include
Your
those,
time is up.
then you would want to include the following. Eliminate staff interruptions by non-staff people demanding information. And one other thing I would like to say.
Sir, your time's up, but
Based
Go ahead.
Based on the comments that were made at the December 6th Planning Commission meeting, I would strongly support that Craig step down as a member of the Planning Commission.
thank you. Good evening, Ms. Puplava.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jennifer Puplava, and I am the chair of the Cascade Downtown Development Authority. I learned this past Sunday evening that the agenda for tonight's meeting contained a number of recommendations for committee appointments to township boards as well, and including the DDA board. And I was quite surprised to learn that 2 DDA board members, Steve Stefan and Gary DeWitt, were not recommended for reappointment. I understand that DDA board members are appointed by recommendation of the supervisor, subject to approval by the board. However, I'm troubled by the recommendation made by the supervisor for several reasons. First, these recommendations were made and published as part of the board packet without any warning or conversation with the board members in question. Steve and Gary are both volunteers. They deserve to learn about these recommendations directly before they were made available to the public. Second, the recommendations were made without any apparent consideration of these board members' prior contributions to the board. Both are active volunteers who have enthusiastically and faithfully served on the DDA board and have contributed substantively to township matters. Gary is a DDA resident, just completing his first term on the board. Steve owns a business in the DDA and is concluding his second term. Steve's also the vice chair of the DDA board and has gone out of his way to communicate with other business owners in the DDA regarding their needs and has shared those with our DDA board. Removal of these board members would be a loss to the DDA and to the township. Third, the supervisor's reasons for not recommending reappointment of these gentlemen doesn't align with the other appointments and reappointments presented to the board for consideration tonight. The supervisor's memorandum explains that, quote, the recommended DDA appointments will provide a fresh perspective and broaden community participation, end quote. However, for example, Mr. Rowland's being recommended to join the Planning Commission after conclusion of his service as a member of the Parks Committee. Also, Parks Committee member Ms. Corstange, and I apologize if I butchered that, is being recommended to serve concurrently on the Planning Commission and the Parks Committee. Moreover, aside from Mr. Stepan, Dr. Rick Siegel, and myself, all the other members of the DDA board are still in their first term of service. I don't know the individuals who have been recommended to join the DDA board, and I'm encouraged that residents are showing increased interest in volunteering for the township.
30 seconds.
Thank you. However, I'm concerned that both the process and the purported reasons for failing to reappoint these two existing DDA board members will serve as a disincentive to other members of our community to engage and dedicate their time toward helping the township. As such, I asked this township board to reject the supervisor's recommendation regarding these committee appointments and instead first engage these board members to reaffirm the township's gratitude for their service and to gauge their potential interest in reappointment to their current DDA board positions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Leanne Rowland. I'm at 7176 Aqua Fria Court. I applied to and was accepted for the ad hoc committee for the SAD River District. And we haven't had a meeting, and I'm really concerned that that's not happening yet. And I learned on the packet tonight that 2 new people are being added to that committee. And I'm just not understanding what's happening. Why is it not going? And if we're going to get things going for 2022 permits and contractors, we need to be talking about that right now, yesterday. So I just wanted to find out what's happening with that.
This is the first, I thought you needed to have the meeting by the 15th. The board has everything done. We're ready for meetings, but Manager Swayze? I haven't heard any of this.
We had one scheduled and we had to reschedule, so I'm working on that right now.
Okay.
Why was there new people added at the last minute now?
We had 2 additional people that wanted to participate. And if we added those 2, everyone who sent in an application and expressed interest would then be included. So since it was an even 2, I just thought err on the side of including, but it has nothing to do with scheduling the meeting. I thought the meeting was already.
Okay, well, the only thing about that is that we had an application and a deadline, and that was a long time ago. And now just out of the blue, anyone expressing interest gets added to the committee?
No, they already had.
Okay,
but then
what was the deadline for back, in November?
I don't know if we had a firm deadline.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you hadn't had the meeting. The board had, everything's in lined up. It should have happened.
Okay, well, I'm just concerned that the longer this plays out, the less we get done. That's all.
No, so. That's a good point.
Okay.
Manager Swayze, can you send out an email to the committee members tomorrow?
I can, yep.
And then I guess, I'm not sure what the notice requirements are for that, but as soon as possible.
Definitely.
Thank you for letting us know.
Please don't ask more people to come. I mean, we were just going to get on with it and more people won't help at this point. I
just want you to know that has nothing to do with, that was not at all any delay. That's a separate issue. We had 2 people that And other than that, everyone has expressed interest is on. So I had no idea that the meeting hadn't happened.
Okay.
And they have nothing to do with each other. So I apologize if it looked like that. There was
Not
no
with each
delay in
other.
getting-
It just, there was an application, there was a deadline, and then all of a sudden in December, now we have new people, and I'm like, why? It
Mr.
doesn't make
Whitley
any
had
sense.
applied, and then Mr. Strauss had
7
expressed
seconds.
interest, but hadn't actually filled out the application. So it was just to include everybody who wanted to, but it had nothing to do with this.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing it to our attention.
My name is Susie Gruba. I live at 1147 East Lake Mitchell Drive. I am the daughter of Jack Lewis, a former Cascade Township board member for many, many years. On behalf of my brother, Jeff Lewis, who resides in Boston, Massachusetts, we would like to comment on things that were said at the November 17th board meeting, specifically regarding our dad and his health condition. Jeff and I were upset and disheartened to learn via a Facebook posting that a small group of residents used our dad and his health condition to further what it appeared to be a political agenda. Our dad would have been appalled by this. His private health information was inaccurately portrayed in the public record by self-called friends of the family, Molly Miller and Mary Vanderveen. To set the record straight, our dad was never diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Any close friends of the family would know that our dad was not, and I quote, using their exact words, diagnosed with Alzheimer's for at least 2 years before the election, severely compromised, bedridden, nor was he not there. To set the record straight, our dad passed away from cancer, which he valiantly fought for almost 3 years. My brother reached out to Mary Vanderveen on social media seeking clarity around what was said at the November 17 board meeting. And while he received an initial response from her, when asked for additional clarification, there has been no further response. An initial response followed by no response is a response. True friends of the family would not ignore repeated requests for clarification. Jeff and I are asking for a private and public apology from Molly Miller and Mary Vanderveen for the gross misrepresentation of our dad and his health. Almost a year to the date of his death, to inaccurately use the medical history of a deceased person to gain political advantage is immoral and disgusting. Our dad's medical condition had no material outcome of the 2020 election. Again, our dad would have been appalled by this. Jeff and I want to be clear that our dad was making his own decisions up until 4 days before his death. In fact, one of my last pictures of him was on November 16, 2020, where he was proudly posing with a 550-piece puzzle he had just completed in record time. Our dad was diagnosed with cancer in the middle of his term and needed to decide what he was going to do with regards to his role as an
20
elected
seconds.
official. With guidance and advice from then Supervisor Bean, he made his own decision to step down from the Planning Commission, and he decided he wanted to spend his time focusing his energies on the activities of the board. Our dad was able to continue serving the people of Cascade, even during the time when the board meetings were all virtual. I was on standby in case he needed any technical support, but otherwise, he ensured he was prepared for the meeting by thoroughly reviewing the agenda in preparation for each meeting. Even a few months before the final time to file to run for re-election in 2020, our dad considered running again. After discussions with family and various board members, he determined it was time to retire, and this was his decision. Jeff and I were honored to hear that many people considered our dad to be their mentor, and he appreciated that with a lot of humility. He often said he was just a salesman from Belding, but his real heart was in Cascade. Jeff and I don't have a political dog in the current fight in Cascade, but we have a voracious fight to maintain our parents' reputation and accomplishments to the Cascade community. Many thanks to the thousands of Cascade residents that voted for our dad numerous times. Thanks to all those who worked with him and especially those that supported him. And I thank you for giving me the time to share these thoughts and words on behalf of me and my brother, Jeff.
Thank you.
Scott Rissy, 7238 Cascade Road. It's hard to follow all this tonight. There's a lot going on, different directions, but I'll give it a shot. So if you were a committee of cattle ranchers and you were discussing how to take cattle to market and you realized you needed another member on your committee, would you appoint a vegetarian to that committee? Probably not. With the SAD ad hoc committee, I feel that we have a vegetarian potentially in the appointment list. My concern is that there is an individual being appointed whose application was not included in the packet like everyone else's was prior to the previous deadline that was set. And this particular individual filed with the state of Michigan tax tribunal, one of less than a handful of people that did that. And that tells me that this person wants to recuse himself from the special assessment district because he's appealing it to the state. And I don't feel that that is going to create harmony in the committee by having a person who is making recommendations to you as to how to spend the funds that is a person who doesn't want to be part of the SAD in any way. I feel that I think that's a poor appointment choice. That's my opinion on that. My other item that I wanted to bring up is that we have a zoning board of appeals. If a case goes in front of the planning commission and then it is recommended to the township board approves it, and somebody disagrees with it, they go to the zoning board of appeals to appeal the decision. If we have an appointee that is on both committees, then they will have to recuse themselves from that discussion. And therefore we could be in a bind when the trustee who is involved has to recuse himself also. You could end up with only two people on the ZBA. You're nodding. I think you know where I'm going with this. So
I should have called, it's my error. You're right.
that person should only be appointed to one committee, one commission, not two.
Yes.
So, and then my last item to bring up, I'm moving fast. This is great. I can talk about the weather. I know that we have a little bit of a hiccup regarding staffing at the township right now, and that there is a lot of weight falling on the manager's schedule. I know that everybody wants a piece of his time and he only has so much time to give out. So my comment, I don't want to be directed at as though he is not doing his duty, because I know he is doing the best he can with the limited resources we have right now. But Jeff Carpenter and myself for almost 9 months have been trying to arrange a sliver of time to discuss river drawdown and filing a permit with the state. And then also we just heard about the ad hoc committee wants to meet as well. So, which I think you've addressed, but I would really urge the board to try and find a way to ratchet a couple of these items up on the priority list so that we could get them moving. We were supposed to have ad hoc committee stuff done by the 15th, or we were supposed to have our file for permits by the 15th of December. Our river drawdown is 4 months away, and we really need to get working on that permit if we're going to have a river drawdown in the spring. So with that, I'll happily sit down and try to enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thank you. Any other comments virtually?
If any of our Zoom participants would like to make a public comment during this period, please raise your hand. That's also *9 if you're participating via phone, and I'll wait just a moment. I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, thank you. That concludes this portion of public comment. Article 6, approval of consent agenda. Is there discussion or a motion?
Motion made to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
It's a motion by Trustee Shipley, supported by Trustee Kessel to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Article 7, financial actions. Approval of the fiscal year 2021 third quarter budget amendments. Discussion or a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Support.
Manager Swayze, could you give us a brief explanation of this with the details?
Yep, I certainly can. So just some minor budget amendments towards the end of the year, all things that the board has talked about. And these were passed through the Personnel and Finance Committee as well. So we have a little bit of an increased revenue in our state shared revenue based on the state of Michigan Treasury Department estimation for our last two revenue sharing payments. The board has talked a couple different times about the transfer to and from the police fund. The amendment in the general fund and the amendment in the police fund essentially reverses that transfer. So that transfer is zero. Added some money in a special projects line item for the strategic plan that is ongoing. Had to increase our legal fees a little bit as we finish up a year where we had several projects and tax tribunal cases that involved additional legal fees. We had our workers' comp audit. There was a little bit more money that we had to pay for workers' comp this year based on the salary audit. We ended up having to pay some unemployment tax for the first time in at least since I've been here, so 8 years. So we had to put a little bit of money in a line item for that. And then the initial part of the fire station architecture and engineering contract that was approved by the board earlier this year.
Thank you. So that was a motion by Shipley, supported by Trustee Kessel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Article 8, unfinished business. Item 115, 2021, resetting public hearing for stormwater ordinance.
So I'm still working on some final ordinance language with our legal team and Elgro. So I wasn't prepared for this meeting to be able to present the final ordinance language. So I'm asking that public hearing be pushed to January 12th.
Make a motion that we move the public hearing to January 12th for the stormwater ordinance.
Support.
It's a motion by Trustee Kessel, supported by Trustee Shipley, to reset the public hearing for stormwater ordinance as stated in the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Article 9, new business. Item 119, 2021. Subpart A, public hearing to consider amendments to the Laterno Planned Unit Development Ordinance for dental office. Is there a motion to open public hearing?
Motion made to open public hearing.
Support.
It's a motion by Trustee Shipley, supported by Trustee McDonald, to open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to comment? Please. Oh, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're in public hearing. So anyone wishing to comment on the project is welcome to at this time. Is there a motion?
Motion made to close the public hearing.
Support.
It's a motion by Trustee Shipley, supported by Trustee McDonald, to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are now back in regular session. Amendments to Laterno Planned Unit Development Ordinance to permit a dental office. Planner Hilbrands, thank you for coming.
Great, thank you, Supervisor Lesperance. Let's see if I can put something up on the screen here for everyone. So at this time, the applicant's requesting final plan approval to amend PUD 49 to allow for a dental office in the existing building. The lot's located on the southeast corner of Craft and 36th Street. The site currently includes an existing single-family home that was used as an office space, and the applicant's proposing that the building be now used for a dental office, and the PUD has to be amended to allow for that use. The applicant's also proposing some minor changes around the parking lot, including a slight expansion to accommodate 12 spaces and adding some additional landscaping as well. The Township Engineer and Fire Department have both reviewed and approved the plans, and the applicants also received approval from the Kent County Road Commission for changes to the curb cut there. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on this matter at their November 8 meeting and has recommended approval of the site plan and the amendments to the PUD. So at this time, staff are also recommending approval of the project with the 3 conditions that are included in my attached memo.
Thank you. Is there a discussion or motion?
Shipley makes a motion to approve the amendment to the PUD ordinance to permit the dental office.
Second.
It's a motion by Trustee Shipley, supported by Clerk Slater, to amend the Laterno Planned Unit Development Ordinance as stated on the agenda to permit the dental office. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee McDonald.
Yes.
Trustee Kessel.
Yes.
Trustee Shipley.
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook.
Yes.
Treasurer Pierce.
Yes.
Slater, yes. Supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes, motion carried. Welcome. Thank you for choosing Cascade. Item 120-2021, final plan approval for Bridal Trail development.
So here the applicant's requesting final plan approval of a new 19-home development on the corner of Buttrick and Grand River. This project was done as a by right development because it did not require any exceptions from our ordinances. Final preliminary plan approval was given by the board back in November of 2020, and that approval letter is included in your packet there. The final preliminary approval allowed the developer to move forward with construction of the required site improvements, such as the private street, stormwater system, and pathway along Grand River. The developers also provided the master deed and bylaw documents for the development, and the township attorney has reviewed and approved those documents. The required improvements have now all been constructed, so the applicant's now requesting that final plan approval. The township engineers reviewed and approved those improvements, and the review letter is also included in your packet. So this here is the final step in the approval process for a by right development. At this time, staff are recommending final approval be given with one condition, and I believe that condition should read as follows: that the applicant record the required documents, which would include the stormwater maintenance agreement, the easement for the pedestrian pathway, and then also the master deed and bylaws for the development.
Brian, is this public water, sewer, or well and septic?
It's sewer coming from Ada, and then it will be well.
Okay.
All right, and I have a question. It looks like they've done a lot of earth moving out there. That's what I anticipated. Do they give you any idea when they might start building a structure?
I think probably the applicant's here too to speak, but I think they've actually submitted one building permit already. And that's waiting until this approval, obviously, and then when documents get recorded. So I think they're getting ready to go.
Okay, chances are it'll fill up rather rapidly.
Seems like it at least.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Is there a motion or discussion?
I move to approve the final approval with staff's conditions, and I noted that Brian added one that isn't in writing, so whatever Brian stated is as conditions, I would like to include those.
Support.
It's a motion by Trustee McDonald, supported by Trustee Shipley, to approve the final plan for Bridal Trail development, including Planner Hillbrand's additional conditions and changes in writing and also mentioned here tonight. Is there discussion? Or I'm sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 121-2021. This is the award for the request for proposal for the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan.
One more for me here. The Parks Committee, along with Township staff, sent out an RFP for services to update the 5-year Cascade Charter Township Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan. So after that RFP was sent out, 6 proposals were received. And of those 3, the Parks Committee elected to interview the MCSA group, McKenna, and Troyer group. I do want to note, it's also included in my memo there, that Mike Reese is the project manager for Troyer group and is also a member of the Parks Committee. At meetings where the Parks Committee discussed the RFP, Mr. Reese was either not present or made sure to. At meetings where the Parks Committee discussed the RFP, Mr. Reese, was either not present or made sure to recuse himself during those discussions. The Parks Committee did discuss at length whether it would be an issue if Mr. Reese's firm submitted a proposal, and they determined that it would not be a problem there. 4 members of the Parks Committee were able to attend all 3 interviews that were conducted, and those 4 members unanimously recommended that the township select Troyer Group to assist the township with updating the parks, recreation and open space plan. The committee members were impressed with the professionalism and detail of the Troyer Group's proposal, as well as their knowledge of Cascade and its parks, and they believe that they are a great fit for this project. At this time, the Parks Committee is requesting that the township move forward with selecting Troyer Group to assist the township with updating the parks, recreation, and open space plan as described in their proposal.
Thank you. Motion or discussion?
I move to approve the Troyer Group for this project for the recreation and open space plan parks.
Support.
It's a motion by Trustee McDonald, supported by Trustee Nordhook, to approve Troyer Group for the Parks and Recreation RFP. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 122, 2021, contract for janitorial service with Hope Network for the library. Manager Swayze?
Great, thank you. So we have used 2 different models for janitorial services in the township. Prior to 2018, we used the services of a janitorial contractor, and the most recent contractor to provide that service was EnviroClean. In 2017, EnviroClean had issues providing the township with satisfactory services. And at that time, a decision was made to sever that janitorial contract and provide cleaning services with our own buildings and grounding staff. And 1 member was added to the buildings and ground staff to accommodate that additional work. We've had 2 different employees fill that role with the department since the work was brought in-house. The second employee assigned to these staff left employment with the township this past summer. After consulting with the buildings and ground leadership and workers, it's been recommended that we consider the janitorial work for the Cascade Library return to the contractor model. Cleaning for the Township Hall and parks and facilities will remain in-house for the time being, but there may be an opportunity in the future to add that to the contractor, and the fire department facilities are cleaned by the fire department staff. So we actually engaged Hope Network directly to provide proposal for janitorial services. They've come highly recommended from several sources. And in addition to that, they provide employment opportunities for individuals with disabilities in a supportive, team-oriented work environment. They also provide on-site working supervisors monitoring and coaching the crew members throughout their sites. So the Hope Network provided a quote of $41,311 per year. I will note that will be slightly reduced because they did not realize we are closed on Sundays between Memorial Day and Labor Day and don't require services then. The services outlined in the proposal include daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly tasks. And while the township will remain responsible for all the consumables, paper towel, toilet paper, all of that sort of stuff, the Hope Network will provide all of the equipment necessary to do the work as well as the chemicals. So I provided a couple items in your packet for review: the proposal from Hope Network for the services, quote unquote stock agreement with janitorial services from Hope Network, and an overview pamphlet of their organization as well. The proposal was reviewed by the township staff, including the HR and buildings and grounds leadership, as well as the Cascade Library leadership. And that review included an interview with the manager of janitorial operations from the Hope Network, as well as a facility walkthrough. The consensus among the leadership was that we believe that engaging Hope Network for this work will be a positive benefit to the library and will allow us to free up buildings and ground staff to attend to other issues. I would note that then we would not refill the position that was left vacant this summer. If they're successful, the recommendation may be made at a future date to include other township facilities in the contract. And if it's approved by the board, the commencement date target is January 3. Personnel Finance Committee reviewed at their December meeting and then forwarded a recommendation to the Township Board to approve the agreement. Again, $41,311 to be slightly reduced. The billings will also be reduced in circumstances where the daily cleaning is not needed, i.e. if there's snow days at the library or sometimes they have in-service days. We did include the proposed contract amount in the proposed fiscal year 2022 budget. In addition, one full-time buildings and grounds employee has been removed from the budget as well, and that is currently unfilled. So with that, with the recommendation from the Personnel and Finance Committee, they've recommended to approve the janitorial services agreement with Hope Network upon approval of the contract language by the township attorney and authorize the township manager to execute it on behalf of the township.
Thank you. Is there discussion or motion?
I make a motion that we approve the janitorial service with Hope Network.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee Kessel, to approve the janitorial service contract with Hope Network for the Cascade Library. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 123, 2021. Consider new agreement with Sabo PR for consulting services.
So we've used Sabo Public Relations, LLC, which was established by Mary Ann Sabo in 2003 for our PR issues, communication stuff over the past 4 years. Since 2017. Initially, Sabo came highly recommended to the township by several other area municipalities, and they currently do work for the city of Kentwood, the city of Wyoming, the city of East Grand Rapids, city of Lowell, and Plainfield Township, among other public and private clients. So we currently have a member of the Sabo team embedded as a team member into our organization for 64 to 96 hours per month. And then in addition, the township has access to a host of other team members and services at the rates that are outlined in the email that are provided for you in your packet. So Sabo PR is adjusting their rates for 2022 through 2025 for embedded team members. In addition, they've established a tiered rate chart for Sabo team member services outside of the embedded services, as well as crisis management services. And I would note that this same rate structure has or is being established for other municipal clients as well. So from my perspective, we've been very well served by the Sabo PR team. They've been integral in establishing an enhanced communication structure within our organization since 2017. The township social media presence, newsletter, email, communication has been significantly influenced, if not directly designed, by the Sabo team over the past 4 years. The current embedded employee has been with the township for over 2 years, brings a host of experience to the township, including videography and graphic design skills that are hard to find in the industry right now. So I would note that the township did not bid out the services in 2017. However, we were able to get the bidding documents from the city of Kentwood that did bid out the services. And at that time, the other bid prices ranged from $78 to $143 an hour. And I did include that bid sheet in your packet as well. So the Personnel Finance Committee reviewed this item at their December meeting and have recommended the Township Board approve the agreement. I would note also that the agreement is written in a manner it can be terminated by either party at any time by notifying the other party in writing. So again, the proposal from Sabo PR calls for rates for embedded services for 64 to 96 hours per week, per month, sorry, that's a typo. For 2001, the remaining of 2001, it'll be remain $50. 2022, it'd go up to $55. 2023, $57.50. 2024, $60. 2025, $62.50. The rates for the other services and team members can be found in the proposal. And I would note that our fiscal year 2022 budget includes an initial allocation of $64,000 for these services. So both Mary Ann Sabo and our embedded Sabo employee, Hunter Zuck, are here tonight if you have any questions for them. But the recommendation coming from the Personnel and Finance Committee is to approve the communication, public relations, and marketing considerations proposal from Sabo upon the approval of the agreement language by the township attorney and authorize the township manager to authorize it on behalf of the township.
Trustee Nordhook?
I have questions. Are we closer to 75,000 right now for services this year?
I don't know the exact amount. I know we were nestling up against that number the last time I checked.
Okay. And then on the social media, is there, do we have any measurements? Do we know how many hits we're getting? What's the bang for the buck on there?
Maybe Hunter, could you come up and maybe explain what type of metrics, measurables are available to us on our social media presence?
Hi, this is you, Hunter Zook with Sabo PR. Good to see you. Yeah, so pretty much everything that we do electronically, we have metrics for, except for the print newsletter. So our social media, we can see insights and clicks and impressions. We also run a lot of social media advertisements, which we pay for special occasions like the strategic process planning commission, or we do for the park survey or for the fire department. So yep, we can track all that as well as our e-newsletter. We get all the clicks for that too. We can see which links are clicked the most. We can see how many people opened. We can see how much our audiences have increased as well. So we have a good measurement for most of the digital efforts that we do. Yep.
Okay, I haven't seen any quarterly reports as to what these numbers are. You're saying you see it, but we don't. What can you start doing some reports as to performance?
Yeah, absolutely. So I used to do that with Steph. So now Ben and I are having a 2022 planning meeting so we can discuss what we want those metrics and those goals and how we want to report those, how we want those to look going forward. Absolutely.
Have we done an RFP or on our own other than just ask other townships?
We have not.
I think that process has been working very good for us. Everyone that we send out, we seem to come up with a real good response and a real good result. I think I would like to continue working with you, but I think I'd also like to do an RFP and just see what else is out there. I don't know. Thoughts?
I kind of agree with you, Timmy. Sabo has been doing a pretty decent job. And just remind the board that we have talked about somewhere down the line, having an in-house PR person or PR crew. So I'm happy to hear that we can terminate the contract if we want to with notice. So building your, lack of a better term, your empire within that office.
Please don't refer to it as that.
That's something that we'll continue to look at, because as with the PR person, we also talked about an engineering consultant or engineering person. That's all I have to say.
Hunter, I think you're doing a fantastic job. And Mary Ann, you guys are very talented. I just think from an in-staffing point, which we've kind of already discussed, you're worth $80,000 a year, obviously, but I think it's more, we need some of these categories to bring them in-house for basic website, different things like that. So I think the sooner we work on that, the better. Keep the experts to expert categories, but we appreciate you guys stepping in and filling in such a large role for us right now. You guys have, I don't mean that as a criticism of you at all, or Mary Ann, you guys are fantastic.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No.
Clerk Slater?
I believe at this time, since we are a bit short-staffed in-house, that we should continue with Sabo. I think they've done a great job.
Thank you, Sue.
I do too. I just don't want to be short-staffed anymore.
Make a motion to approve the public relations and communications consultant agreement with Sabo PR.
So motion by Trustee Kessel, supported by Treasurer Pierce, to approve the agreement with Sabo PR for consulting services. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you,
Cool.
Hunter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Item 124, 2021, resolution to transfer monies from the general fund to the fire fund. Manager Swayze.
So this is a resolution that we approve every year as part of the budget process. In June of 2004, the Township Board approved a resolution to place a fire protection services ballot on the August 3, 2004 primary election. At the time, it was 0.58 mils, and the resolution contained the following provision. I'm reading this verbatim. That the Township Board agrees that should the ballot proposal be approved by the electors, subject to the immediately following sentence, it will commit annually during the time the approved millage is levied a minimum of $400,000 from the Township General Fund for fire protection services. Such annual commitment may only be suspended by formal resolution of the Township Board upon a finding that severe economic conditions exist which would cause a budget deficit without such suspension. So that proposal was approved by the Cascade Charter Township electors in August of 2004 and is currently scheduled to be levied through 2024. The Township Board has made the required appropriation each year the millage has been levied. Back in 2014, there was a budget process recommended by the Finance Committee that the appropriation should also be made by formal resolution each year. So just not the suspension of the appropriation, so the actual appropriation as well. And that was done beginning with the fiscal year 2014 budget and has happened every year since. So our fiscal year 2022 budget indicates that severe economic conditions which would cause a budget deficit without such suspension do not exist. And the fiscal year 2022 budget has been prepared with a proposed budget surplus after the appropriation has been made before the effect of any capital improvements is considered. So approval of the proposed resolution will appropriate $400,000 of general fund support to the fire fund. And we did propose the fiscal year 2022 budget be prepared with this appropriation. So with that, the recommendation would be to approve the resolution of general fund support to the fire fund.
I make a motion to approve the resolution of the general fund support to the
Support.
fire fund like we've done for many years.
Support.
It's a motion by Trustee McDonald, supported by Trustee Kessel to transfer monies as stated in the agenda item to the general fund, or excuse me, from the general fund to the fire fund. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Treasurer Pierce,
Yes.
Trustee Kessel,
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
Trustee Shipley,
Yes.
Trustee McDonald,
Yes.
Clerk Slater, yes. Supervisor Lesperance.
Yes. Item 125, 2021, proposed 2022 general and special fund budgets. First, is there a motion to open a public hearing on this proposed budget?
Motion made to open the public hearing.
Support.
It's a motion by Trustee Shipley, supported by Trustee Kessel to open a public hearing on this proposed budget for 2022. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are now in public session. Anyone wishing to comment or ask questions on the budget, welcome to do so here or virtually. Do we have anyone online?
Any of our Zoom participants would like to actually, I see a chat. There's something that's not, I don't think it should be for public comment, so I'll hold it for public comment. It's not about this.
Okay.
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak in this public hearing regarding this matter, the budget, please raise your hand. I'll give it a few moments. Doesn't look like anyone wants to.
Okay, thanks. Is there a motion?
Motion made to close public hearing.
Support.
It's a motion by Trustee Shipley, supported by Trustee McDonald to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Part B, approval of the resolution to adopt fiscal year 2022 Cascade Charter Township general and special budgets. Manager Swayze?
Yeah, so I know you guys probably have a fear that I'm going to go through the entire 100 slide PowerPoint presentation again. I promise you I won't do that. I've prepared about 12 slides here just to give a general overview of our budget this year. So looking at the general fund covers basically all of our activities that are generally funded through tax dollars, but don't have a dedicated millage. So like, for an instance, we just talked about the fire fund that has a dedicated millage. We keep that separate, but the general fund covers items like the township board, the supervisor and manager, the clerk, treasurer, assessing, elections, so on and so forth. You can see the list there. So when we're looking at our general fund revenues, so a millage rate equals $1 per $1,000 of taxable value. And the millage rate, the budget for this year was prepared with a millage rate of 0.9607 mils. And we did have a Headley rollback this year. So there are a couple different statutes in the state of Michigan that ensure the Township revenues for existing property don't increase faster than the rate of inflation. So there's one part of the statute that makes sure people's taxable values stay below the rate of inflation. And there's another part that adjusts our maximum millage based on that rate of inflation and the revenues that come in. So the original millage rate for the township was 1.1 mils. That's slowly been rolled back to 0.9607 mils this year. So for fiscal year 2021 values, and I would remind everybody that our fiscal year 2021 tax roll actually funds our fiscal year 2022 budget. So that can be confusing for people sometimes, but our state equalized value, which is essentially half of the cash value of all real and personal property in the township, is just over $2.1 billion. And our taxable value, which is applied to the millage rate to get our tax revenues, is $1.768 billion. There's a difference of $367 million there, which is again an artifact of those statutes that make sure that our revenues don't increase faster than the rate of inflation. So if you look at our real and personal property tax revenues, you can see what we would expect. They're going up at a slow pace over the past 5 years. And if you look at our overall general fund revenues, we had a little blip in 2021, mostly related to the effects of COVID, especially on interest rates, because you'll see we carry some fund balances. We're not really earning any interest on those fund balances right now. However, a little tick back up in 2022. I would also note that if you look at these two charts together, for 2022, $1.6 million in tax dollars coming in, but $5.2 million in overall fund revenues, which basically just relates back to the fact that we have a very diverse revenue source. A lot of cities, small cities, depend primarily on their tax revenues to fund their general fund. So it's nice that we have a diversity of revenue sources in our general fund. And looking at our overall general fund expenditures, we spent quite a bit of money on capital improvements through 2019, 2020, and 2021, including the new Township Hall and about $2.5 million worth of road improvement work. And then for 2022, we're back down to just over $5 million. The budget was prepared with not a whole lot of capital improvements in it, waiting for the strategic plan to be finished before the board decides how to invest money going forward in non-operating expenditures. This is a very busy chart here, but I usually just put it up just to demonstrate that the expenditures in our general fund are pretty even, right? So we don't have any general fund category that's eating up 35% of our general fund revenues. We kind of spread it around to all the different departments. And looking at our general fund balance, again, as we elevated those expenditures in 2019, 20, and 21, we slowly spent down some of our fund balance. We had been saving some of that money for those bigger projects. Then in 2022, we start adding to the fund balance again. So our other tax funds include our fire fund. That is currently at 1.3005 mils. And that is actually a combination of 3 different millages, which produces just over $2.1 million in real and personal property tax revenue. Our police fund, which is the combination of 2 different millages at 0.4538 mils, produces $762,000 in change in real and personal tax revenues. Our open space fund is currently at 0.2274 mils and generates $382,000. Our pathway fund is at 0.3475 mils and generates $584,000. And our library fund is at 0.1482 mils, generating just shy of $250,000 a year. So if you look at all of our fund revenues, you can see again, we had a dip down in 2021, a result of some of the COVID-19 issues, but starting to creep back up again in 2022. So looking at all fund expenditures, again, a combination of some capital improvement expenditures and other funds, in particular the pathway fund, as we spent some of that millage money on extending our pathways, saw an increase in the all fund expenditures from 2019 to 2021, and then 2022 coming back down again as we don't have as many capital improvements budgeted in our general fund budget. And then looking at our all funds fund balance, which combines them all together. Again, the same story, talked about spending down some of those fund balances when we got to 2021, and with a lack of capital expenditure projects for 2022 so far, start to see those fund balances creep back up. So just to talk a little bit about our millage rates, sometimes the township gets a bad rap because we're the ones that collect all of the tax revenues. However, we don't hold on to all those tax revenues because we collect the taxes for all the taxing jurisdictions and then we push them out to those other jurisdictions. So our total Cascade Township millage is 3.4381 mils. The local schools, in this case, Forest Hill School District, and I only point that out because there's some minor differences between the Forest Hill School District, the Caledonia School District, and the Lowell School District in terms of their millage rates. But a vast majority of the township is in the Forest Hill School District, so I use that for demonstration purposes. So the local schools for their debt millage and their recreation millage collect 7.0845 mils per year. The state of Michigan collects 6 mils a year and then turns around and sends that back to the schools on a per pupil rate. And the Kent Intermediate School District collects 5.5157 mils and uses that to fund special projects in the entire Kent ISD as well. So those 3 millages combined all go to local schools. The Grand Rapids Community College levies 1.7307 mils. The Kent District Library levies 1.2581 mils for library operations. Again, the township has a library millage that originally funded the construction of our library and now funds the ongoing maintenance of our library. And then Kent County and all of their millages, including their operating, jail, zoo, early childhood intervention, and the veterans millage all adds up to 6.1521 mils. And then what does that mean from a dollar perspective? So if you took a $330,000 home in the Forest Hill School District, this is kind of how your tax bill would be divided up. So $567 would go to Cascade Township. $1,168 would go directly to the Forest Hill School District. $990 would go to the state of Michigan to distribute to the school districts. Kent ISD would collect $910. Grand Rapids Community College, $285. Kent District Library, $207. And Kent County would collect just over $1,000. So again, just a good way to see, the tax money that you're sending to Cascade Township kind of gets spread all over all of those different districts. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the budget.
It's a lot shorter than our working session.
I will note that it has come up, since it has come up a couple times. We spent almost, I wouldn't say almost, we spent probably a quarter of our budget session talking about the organizational chart for the township and the new positions that are funded in the township. And we're already working behind the scenes to finalize those positions. And I would expect us to be fully staffed again by the end of first quarter 2022.
Where would the fire station that we're about to pay for and start, where does that come up when we talk about budgets and capital improvement planning?
Yep, so we actually, the Public Safety Advisory Committee just met today to get the first projected budget documents for that. So that'll trigger a whole lot of items. We'll have to talk to bond counsel at Foster Swift about that and what the different bond levels will look like. And then the Personnel Finance Committee will have to explore different combinations of cash funding and bond funding for the project. The project the entire time, and still the anticipation is that any bonding would be covered by current revenues. So there wouldn't be any tax increase to the public in order to do that, but it's always a balance, right? So you saw from the presentation that we do have some cash balances in some of these funds. Obviously, the best part about that is if you use those, you don't have to pay any interest on it. The flip side is you want to make sure that you don't have any cash flow issues. So you want to bond for part of it. Luckily, we have both a AAA bond rating and interest rates are still historically low as of now, though there was a word from the Fed today, actually, that they're looking at rate increases. So it's a it's an idea of figuring out what that balance is between cash funding and bond funding. And then eventually when that's decided, it'll come back to the board in the form of the budget amendment.
Do we put anything out for the public or for the board about what we spent in the past annually, like this past year, on major vendors like our engineer or any of the big ones we have?
So we currently, publish all of our, what I would essentially call a check register, for lack of a better word, in the packets as are approved by the board, but we don't really have any space on our website to keep that. And it's organized not by major vendors or whatnot. It's organized both by departments and then GLs as well. So if that's something the board, we know we talked about that during our budget workshop. That's certainly a type of reporting that we could look at producing as well. Luckily, we've got pretty robust accounting software, so it's pretty easy to pull those kinds of reports.
That would be helpful. I don't know how it's best to present it to the board, but the budget doesn't, I guess, just have a bigger picture about, what funds are available, what are restricted, what are committed, just overall kind of dumbed down for the non-numbers people, maybe.
Yeah, we can certainly work on that.
That is provided in the financial report too, though, that the auditors give.
So it's reported in the audit. I've been looking at audits myself for 15 years now, and I still have a hard time disseminating some of that information. So, hopefully there would be a way for us to, we try to distill it down in the front, management discussion portion. But there may be an opportunity to represent it better through graphs and that type of stuff.
Because part of it that we designated was for unfunded liability for a pension plan. You set money aside for that, and that's in the budget, or it's in the balance sheet anyway.
Correct.
Trustee Nordhook?
I'd like to make just a small amendment to this budget for the police fund. I want to put the money back that we've been taking out for 18, 19, and 20, which is, I believe, 111,000. I don't have the exact number, 200. So we have the exact number in the minutes. I'd like to transfer that back to the police fund so that we could use that for neighborhood patrols or speeding. It seems to be coming up a lot.
What was amended after the last week's budget session when that came up?
We just voted on budget amendments.
So in the budget amendments, we did it for 2021, but the budget amendments did not include anything for 2019 or 18. So we would have to take Trustee Nordick's number and back out the amendment that's already been approved by the board.
Which would be what? Roughly?
$40,000 a change.
Per year.
We've already approved $40,000 coming out. Trustee Nordick is suggesting that we take out another 111.
Correct.
Dumb it down.
Thank you. I need that. Sorry, probably painful to listen to.
Supervisor, do you need the number from the minutes?
It depends on what the motion is. We might. Discussion.
I think that the residents of this township have on numerous occasions made it perfectly clear that they're concerned about traffic speed in the township, especially the major roads, and also crime prevention in the neighborhoods that seem to be creeping out this way. I think it'd be a good idea if we could do that, to put that money in the budget and bolster the sheriff assets for the township.
That could go directly into paying for additional coverage that we already are set up to.
Correct, an additional car or crime prevention, the dog that you see on TV all the time, take a bite out of crime.
I think we're able to request how we want that, additional neighborhood patrols.
And we do have the use of a couple speed trailers out here, and that helps, but that's a temporary fix. I mean, you go down here on 28th Street and it's like or on Thornapple River Drive, and as soon as that speed sign is gone, It's the Grand Prix time again.
Question for Ben. Ben, so we've already approved these budget amendments for what we had for the police fund prior, and those were all legitimate expenses. If we wanted to allocate additional money to the police fund from the general fund, we can do that anytime we want anyway, can't we?
Correct. Yep. So it would just be a transfer out of the general fund into the police fund. Yeah. You can do that at any amount, and it doesn't have to. It wouldn't have to represent what we had previously transferred in either, right? So just like the fire fund, you know, the board could, of course, that's, you know, related to that millage money, but you can transfer money, you know, the general fund into anything that you want to do. So if you decided, yeah, we want to spend an extra $1 million on, you know, police over the next year, you can make that transfer. I guess I just would note too that the police fund is generating operational surpluses every year. So if that transfer is made, you know, my recommendation would be basically at the next Public Safety Advisory Committee meeting to have a discussion topic on how we're going to invest those funds, right? Because there really shouldn't be we shouldn't be collecting an operational surplus. The idea behind collecting a surplus, besides minor cash flow issues, is to save up for capital improvements and those types of things. And there's no planned capital improvements coming out of the police fund.
We keep hearing from residents that they want, that one of their biggest concerns is safety and speeding. And it's been on the it's on the table for a long time. We just haven't seen anything.
And is it, looks like our balance on our police fund has gone up from $1.5 million to $1.6 million. And based on, if we adopt this budget, projecting next year, $1.7 million. So we've got plenty of money in the millage. That's a rough number, $1.7 million. We got plenty of money in the police millage to do additional things.
That's correct. Yep.
So, I would think moving any money this year might be appropriate since we lost the assistant manager. That part of that funding was going to, but I don't think it's appropriate to do it for prior years.
I do. If the language that the voters were presented with was specifically that pass this millage for additional sheriff road patrol and specifically for hours of sheriff patrol in Cascade, and then granted it's probably not illegal, but then half of the assistant manager's salary was being used by those millage funds, we don't have as much credibility when we go and ask the public for additional millages in the future. And since the language that was written by the staff and approved by the board was so clear and then so clearly not used for that purpose, I think it's entirely appropriate, especially when all residents seem to be pretty much on the same page that we need more coverage for public safety and speeding. I think it's embarrassing that we were so sloppy with that.
Yeah, my point is we have enough money in our fund balance to provide them with that service. Moving any additional money over, I don't see as necessary.
I think Trustee Nordhook's point was to correct sloppiness that maybe we shouldn't have done before. And as a board, if we know about it now, we can do better. And if I'm a resident and I voted for that, I want my funds spent, I want my tax dollars spent how I voted for so that it means something.
The ballot was very clear that that millage was being passed for 24-hour road patrol by the Sheriff's Department in support of the East Precinct. Because there's a surplus means we're not providing enough road patrol, doesn't give us the right to go in and steal the money out of there and pay salaries. That money, when those voters went in and approved that, they approved it for road patrol, not for our salaries. So all I'm saying is put the money back and get the road patrol. That's what it was for.
And as a board, it's our job to oversee staff to make sure that we're on top of these kinds of things. So now that we know, I think we should direct staff to do it more clearly.
Motion on the floor.
Right. We look terrible and foolish as a board if we allow this kind of slop. Manager Swayze, I get it. It's not illegal, but it's not right. And we look foolish. We're the ones who directly answer to the voters. So we need to be aware of, and we need to be informed. And if we know that this happened, I think the amount that was transferred should go back into the fund. the fact that residents are concerned about it and have repeatedly expressed the concerns, and we haven't done anything as a board for additional coverage, which again, I'm not quite sure why, but there's only so many hours in the day. This is where you act as a board at public meetings. This is the time to do it. So I would support, if you can figure out the numbers, I will second your motion. I just can't figure out the numbers.
I have the numbers that you gave me last week.
Thank you.
$112,233.
That is the dollar amount that I'd like to transfer back to the police fund from the general fund.
Do you want to make the motion to, for the whole thing, the approval pending that amendment, or how would you like to do it? Is there any other discussion that the board would like to have?
No, I agree with Sue and Timmy, and as long as we're setting the budget for next year, let's get her done.
How do we go about well, I guess we'll deal with that after the first of the year with police coverage.
That should probably start at the committee level, at the public safety committee, and then be brought to the board after that. And public safety committee could also get recommendations from John Q. Public as to what they would like to see. And John Q. Public is probably better knowledgeable than me as to exactly where the trouble spots are in the township.
And just as a board member, Deputy, you guys are fantastic. Your deputies are fantastic. Marianne and Hunter, you guys are fantastic. I don't mean that as the vendors who are giving us excellent service in the sheriff's department. This is just from a staffing and a board issue internally. I don't mean that at all criticism of you guys. So I hope it doesn't come off that way.
So I'm just wondering, question from an accounting perspective. You know, we move money, we're moving money. Does this come out of the general fund then?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So
it's what I mentioned earlier. It comes out of the general fund.
Yeah.
One way or the other.
There's actually a surplus in the general fund this year. So the surplus would just be reduced by the amount.
Yeah, we debit one and credit the other.
Yep. I guess my question to Trustee Nordic, if I can, the number that you provided at the budget hearing, did that include 2021 or was that just 18, 19?
That was 18, 19, and 20.
All right.
Because we had already removed 2021 at that budget review.
So I guess if you want to include the exact number in the resolution, that's fine. The other thing that you could include if you wanted to is to say an amount equal to the transfers that was made in 2018, 19, and 20. And we can verify through our audited records to make sure that that number is correct.
That's fine.
And Ben, I don't know how this fits into the budget. I get that this is appropriate, but as a board member, I still would like to have a better, and I think as a public too, information about so how much just generally is available in our funds and where it's going to. Just I nod and I understand what you're saying, but at the end of this, I feel like this is like a sliver and I still don't have a really good overall picture. I'm not a numbers person naturally, but.
Wasn't that in the presentation, Ben, the full presentation that's in the packet?
Yeah, but for example, we've in the works, this our biggest capital improvements project to date, the fire station, which is going to be $7 to $10 million. And it's been on people's minds for years. We know that's coming. We have all the plans for it. It's going to be in 2022 that we start breaking ground. I understand it may not go into the budget because we haven't figured out exactly where we're going to pay for it, but it just seems like we should be able to present, but we should be able to present.
You got to figure out how much you're going to take out.
And are we going to bond?
You already kind of know, but to give them nothing, not even mention it. So all of a sudden, hey, we've got a budget for 2022, but we don't know where we're going to pay $7 to $10 million. Yeah, we do. We've had just preliminary discussions about it. So to spring it on them after the fact, when
we're not springing, we don't know what we're going to bond yet.
Yeah, but I just say, give me as if I'm a member of the public. I don't know, maybe I don't understand budgets, but it seems like we could have a little bit of a greater big picture.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, then maybe it's not in the form of budget. Maybe it's in the form of reports, different things like that.
It's going to come from multiple sources, right, Ben? And one, we're probably going to, the personnel and finance committee is going to have to get together once we get a number and they're working on that. And then we determine, once we get a number, then we know how are we going to meet that number? Is some going to come from the general fund? Is some going to come from
I don't disagree
bonding?
with any of this. I agree, but
And
so
we'll tell the public. They have to know.
I'm not saying that. Capital improvements plan, when does that come out?
So we made the decision not to push the capital improvements plan until the strategic plan is done, because it seems disingenuous to put things in there without the strategic plan being completed.
$7 to $10 million fire station? I mean, I don't see why it's, to me, the budget is kind of goes along with the capital improvements plan, or else you don't really have a full picture. I don't know. I don't think we need to wait.
Let's move on with your motion, Timmy. Who supported it?
Well, let me clean that up a little bit. We'll make a motion to amend the budget to replace the dollar amounts taken from 2018, 19, and 20 that were transferred from the police fund to the general fund for the use of the township, assistant township manager's salary.
I second that. So that's a motion made by trustee Nordhook, as stated, supported by Supervisor Lesperance. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Kessel,
Yes.
Treasurer Pierce,
No.
Trustee McDonald,
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
Trustee Shipley,
Yes.
Clerk Slater, yes, Supervisor Lesperance.
Yes. Motion carried. This is item 126, 2021, resolution of intent to levy the 2022 millage rates. Manager Swayze.
Yep, so this is basically the beginning of next year's budget then. So tonight we asked the board to approve a resolution announcing the millage rates that will be the basis for the 2022 tax levy. Basically what you do is you announce the intention. So right now it is basically the same rates that are levied in 2021. We go through the equalization process to determine if there's any millage reduction factors in May 2022. And then you guys have the ability to use all that information to actually set the millage rates at a later time in 2022.
Motion or discussion?
Motion made to consider the approval of resolution of intent to levy the 2022 millage rates. This is a housekeeping issue, I believe.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee Kessel, to pass the resolution of intent to levy the 2022 millage rates. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Shipley.
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook.
Yes.
Trustee McDonald.
Yes.
Treasurer Pierce.
Yes.
Trustee Kessel.
Yes.
Clerk Slater, yes, Supervisor Lesperance.
Yes, motion carried. Item 127, 2021, approval of the 2022 township meeting schedule. Any discussion or a motion?
Move to approve the 2022 Charter Township meeting schedule.
Support. Another housekeeping issue.
That's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Shipley, to approve the 2022 township meeting schedule. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 128, 2021, appointments to township boards and commissions. The board has my memorandum with the appointments. In addition to the board committees, I would note that the Parks Committee has one appointment, Ms. Wendy Corstange. I want to thank Mr. Alan Rowland and Ms. Dawn McDonald. They have done a fantastic job on the Parks Committee. I think they had 9 years. Nothing against them personally. I wish we could keep them on, but to comply with the bylaws and to get back down to the correct number now that we know we have bylaws, that's the Parks Committee appointment. Planning Commission appointments, reappointments, except Mr. Alan Rowland to fill Mr. Katzma's spot that's currently vacant. Zoning Board of Appeals, I apologize. I should have corrected that and caught that earlier. Instead, I get to publicly apologize. Reappointments to people who are already on there. Board of Review, reappointments, except that we had one member who no longer wished to serve. So we luckily had resident Nancy Hillary. She was recommended by another board member. It's supposed to be really good in this area. So that's a highly specialized area. We appreciate her being willing to step up. And then the Downtown Development Authority, Ms. Puplava, I appreciate your comments. I feel bad that I got done with this on Friday night, and I knew that the one thing I hadn't done was reached out to Mr. Steffen and both of those people whose terms were expiring personally. So you're right, I should have. I feel bad that I didn't. I think Mr. Steffen's going on 8 years, and it was absolutely nothing to do with him at all, nothing. So we had a handful of business owners express interest, and I appreciate all of them. I don't think it's so much, their terms are expiring. I wish that I had carved out a slot of time to call them personally and speak to them. But those are the appointments, and I still will do that. I feel bad. It's nothing personal. Happy to get new blood, but happy to have them serve. So I apologize for that. You're right. But those are the appointments. And then with regard to the Special Assessment District, 1, we need to get that meeting going. So Manager Swayze tomorrow. And then 2, Paul Strauss was opposed. Charles Whitney was in favor. Those would be the last 2 who expressed interest in serving. So I don't think his appeal necessarily means he's not eligible to, or would be a terrible job. This is such a contentious issue anyways, to keep the balance. He's got a boat on the river, so I'm still going to keep those 2.
I'm taking these all as one.
Yes.
This includes Township Board standing committees?
Yep.
I make a motion to reject the supervisor's recommendations.
Support.
I'm making them all as one, as you, as president with, I believe Supervisor Bean always did that, and you always approved those as one.
I still stand with my motion to reject.
Is there a second? McDonald?
Second.
It's a motion by Trustee McDonald, supported, or I'm sorry, Kessel, supported by Trustee McDonald. And I'd just like to note that there's nothing radical about these appointments. It's the supervisor's job to make them. They're perfect. They're perfectly reasonable.
You've got Timmy on 3 committees.
They're perfectly reasonable, and I'm not going to revise them. So if we can't comply with our, no, absolutely. And if we can't comply with our policy requirements, that's fine. We'll just have to have some more board meetings instead of the committee meetings. And that's how we'll do it, because there are no carryovers with the exception of the Planning Commission. So I didn't hear ever a question of Supervisor Bean's appointments. It was always 1 slate and 1 unanimous pass. But now you've got a new supervisor. And if you want to leave all of these committees and commissions vacant, with multiple slots vacant, when you've got residents that are willing to serve, that's your choice. That's your choice, Trustee Kessel. We'll just operate with less than the filled vacancies.
Grace, that's not the case. There's so many changes here. Almost all the standing committees are changing. Some major changes. I mean, I don't have a problem, with the parks or the Planning Commission, but the DDA really needs discussion. That should be done separately. Now that we're going to reappoint Lou Berra on the ZBA, that's fine. Just taking them all as one collection is the problem.
So why was it not a problem under the 12 years of Bean, or 8 years of Supervisor Bean?
We never had this many changes at once.
And he talked to them ahead of time.
Yeah.
And I apologize.
And we had full members.
I should have talked to them. I was at the township until late. There's a lot going on. I feel bad, and I still will.
And we had Grace, we had full resumes for most of the people who were going to be on. So we had good.
I don't remember seeing those.
We had much more background, and we never had this many changes.
What many changes? So
personnel and finance. I think Jim is the most knowledgeable person on the board, and Ken, you are too. Really valuable to the finance committee. I think you know, I don't have a problem in infrastructure changing as it is. Public safety advisory, I don't have a problem with that. But I think Jim is a lot of value to the finance committee. The governance committee, they've been working on a project for how long? I don't know how many months. That should be concluded before we change the members on it. And that's right in the process of being culminated. I think that's really important. So it's just hard to make a decision when there can be so many changes. I mean, I don't think we need to add to the special assessment district. I think, you know, Scott Reese made some good points as to why do we need to add people. I think we had a good special assessment district before. So trying to approve all of these is what's making it difficult.
Well, Trustee Kessel's appointment to the Public Safety Committee does reflect his financial background. In 2022, the Public Safety Committee is about to be handling the new fire station, which is a multi-million-dollar project and our largest capital improvement project to date. Trustee Nordhook, Trustee Nordhook is very qualified. He's owned his own business. He's ran his own business successfully. And before he lived in Cascade, he served on the Village of Caledonia board. And while he was there, they had a major municipal water project installation. So I think he's got the experience and a fresh perspective. Again, these are my appointments. If you want to leave them vacant on many committees and commissions, that's fine. It's not what you did with Supervisor Bean.
Supervisor, I just want to ask a question to the board that, and it's just kind of a housekeeping thing. We usually shouldn't vote to say no to something. We should vote to say yes. So
No, you can vote
somebody should move. Is that correct?
No, you can move to.
You can move to, okay, I was just going to ask. So you can move to do that. All right, thanks.
Have a motion and support. Can we call for the vote?
So that's
asking to vote no.
on. So you're asking to vote no on the supervisor's appointments.
Yeah, because I'm not going to vote them all at once.
So a yes is reject the current.
Yes,
He didn't have that power. Say it's not voting.
So that's a motion by Trustee Kessel, supported by Trustee McDonald to, what's the opposite of approve?
To reject.
To reject the appointments to the township boards and commissions. All in favor? It's actually not a roll call. It was put on the agenda to be that, but it's not required. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. Is that 4-3?
It is.
Trustee Pierce, you voted in favor of rejecting it?
Vote in favor of the rejection.
Okay, so that's motion carries.
So all the committees and appointments as of right now will terminate at the end of the year, correct?
No, they stay the same.
No,
replacements are appointed.
And what is that based on? The Planning Commission statute?
That's correct, Mike?
Well, unless it's included, so subcommittee appointments and committee appointments are not covered under statute, right? So it's just a function of your policies and procedures. Unless there's a carryover provision in there, they typically don't carry over. Not on committee appointments. Planning Commission is by statute, so that's clear.
No committee.
I don't know in your policy if you have a carryover provision.
We don't.
Can I make a motion to carry over the current incumbents until resolved later?
No, because that's not consistent with our policy.
It doesn't reflect appointments by the supervisor who has that authority. She's not made those appointments. She's made these appointments. So you certainly can reject them, and that's the board's prerogative. But then, you know, it's like anything else. It's the back and forth appointments until the board approves those appointments.
Okay. Sounds like we got some negotiating to do.
Yep.
I'd be interested in seeing how many committees are canceled meetings before I consider any additional appointments. When people don't show up for committees that they volunteer for, then as far as I'm concerned, we can find a new person for it. That's all I have to say.
That was taken into consideration when making the committee policy appointments.
comment?
Sure.
So since you, I just think if you want to get these committees approved, the best way to do it maybe would be to separate it out if you want to get these on a case-by-case basis. Might go better.
And I'm not going to change my appointments. I will call the DDA members who were not reappointed, and I feel bad about that, but the appointments stand as is. The supervisor has that authority, and I'm not going to change it. Other people can make motions also to separate committees and commission appointments.
I believe that's a done subject. Moving on to the next one.
Item 129, 2021. This item is the December 6, 2021 Planning Commission member comment item. I directed that this be put on the agenda. Also included board member comments in tonight's meeting packet. As I noted already, the comment made by Mr. Merlin was unacceptable, is not, cannot, and will not be tolerated. Threatening or incendiary language has no place in any of our deliberations. I requested our legal counsel to be present tonight to assist us in our deliberations, and he's available for questions. Any discussion? Trustee Nordhook?
So I was at the Planning Commission when the comment was made, and I also reviewed the tape of the comment. Thanks to Clerk Slater's husband calling the sheriff and coming out and investigating Mr. Merlin. It was found there was no crime committed. There were no charges filed. Mr. Merlin did issue an apology, and he agrees that it should not have been said, but that in mind, no crime, no charges, apology was issued. So
well, I believe that I'd like to read this and submit this to Ben or to the council, however it's appropriate, because I've received, had discussions with several residents who've contacted me, and I found those comments were just over the top. So I am requesting the removal of Mr. Craig Merlin, a resident of Cascade Township, from the Cascade Township Planning Commission and all township committees, commissions, or formal bodies. Charges are malfeasance and or misfeasance. The behavior and actions by Mr. Merlin in 2021 clearly demonstrate malfeasance, specifically the behavior of the Planning Commission meeting on December 6, 2021. In the Planning Commission meeting on December 6, 2021, Mr. Merlin publicly stated, if you, and I quote, "If you were at the last board meeting and you had a shotgun, we would have fewer board members today," end of quote. He soon added afterwards, quote, "I was pissed royally." The comments on December 6th referred to and potentially promoted the shooting of board members by shotgun. Many residents are extremely upset by Mr. Merlin's comments, implying that board members could have been or should have been shot if someone brought a shotgun to the board meeting on November 17th, 2021. And we heard the retort from Mr. Lewis's daughter of what occurred at that meeting. That speech or that language by Mr. Merlin is over the line and clearly shows malfeasance. Mr. Merlin should be removed from the Cascade Township Planning Commission and all township committee commissions or formal bodies for malfeasance. With that, I'd like to make a motion to conduct a public hearing, because I know he certainly deserves a hearing. I make a motion to conduct a public hearing to remove Craig Merlin from the Cascade Planning Commission, all committees and or commissions for malfeasance. And that's a motion.
I'll support. Wouldn't that motion come up from the Planning Commission itself to the board?
I believe it does.
No, because the board appointed him. He's not elected, he was appointed. So it come from this board.
Where is that coming from?
I think it's the Planning Commission has to make the motion and ask the board for removal.
Members of the audience, can you wait, please? I understand it's an issue that's got a lot of hot topics, but let's just wait. You can have your second round in public comment.
Council?
The removal process rests with the legislative body, that is the Township Board.
And what if?
But there are two components to that. One is first written charges that would have to be approved by the board. And then a public hearing would have to be set. And then notice would have to be provided to Mr. Merlin. He has a right to be heard.
Correct. And my motion was for the public hearing.
Your motion was for the public hearing, but I didn't hear anything about the written charges. The statute's really unclear about who drafts those, but I suspect, and I've been through this a number of times, and the way we handle that is those written charges should be approved by the board, and then the board set a public hearing to then go through that process. So we need written charges and the public hearing.
And wait, Mr. Homier, excuse me, Attorney Homier, the planning commission that someone mentioned, is it possible that, I haven't seen them, but in our zoning ordinance that spells out the planning commission bylaws that aren't officially bylaws, someone said that they believe that does need to come up from the planning commission based on our own ordinance. Have you seen that?
No, I can look at it, but I don't believe that that's how the process works.
Okay.
The legislative body now I suppose they can make a motion to recommend removal and send it to the legislative body, but the removal process rests here with the Township Board.
Council, so I have in writing the charges of malfeasance or misfeasance that's not in writing. I can't just submit this.
No, I think you could submit that, but your motion didn't include that. So if those are the written charges that you intend for the board to approve and move forward with the removal process, you can do that. It would be to approve those written charges and set the public hearing based on those written charges. Those written charges then would be delivered along with notice of the public hearing to Mr. Merlin so that he has both notice of the charges as well as notice of the time and place of that public hearing.
Okay, so then I can amend my motion for the public hearing for removal and include the written charges of malfeasance and or misfeasance as part of the motion.
Correct.
Then I do so.
And could you walk through the grounds for removal of a committee or commission member?
Yeah, so the statute's pretty clear that the legislative body has the authority to remove a member of the planning commission for misfeasance, malfeasance, or non-feasance in office. What I heard tonight were written charges based mostly on malfeasance, but there was a mention of misfeasance as well. So the comments that were made likely fit within both of those categories. Removal of a planning commission is mostly a political issue, not necessarily a legal one, except for the process, right? So it's the board saying that a member has acted inappropriately and then fitting that conduct within those standards, either misfeasance, malfeasance, or non-feasance in office.
The supervisor?
Yes.
I think that since there's a lot of terms here that can be interpreted differently, I think that any written charges should be reviewed by our legal counsel before it's presented formally to the board.
What are your thoughts
Otherwise,
on that?
I can write up anything here too.
The council can look at them after the fact, John, and say, there's those qualified or not.
We haven't seen them before, which isn't bad or good. Or
I'd still feel a lot more comfortable with legal counsel looking at them before we made any staff judgment.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
If council would explain the difference between malfeasance, misfeasance, and non-feasance, I did look them all up and there is some slight differences. If you'd like to speak to that.
Yeah, so you're right, there are some slight differences between them. So let's start with non-feasance. Non-feasance is the easiest one. It's somebody who doesn't do their job, right? Somebody who doesn't show up, somebody who doesn't participate, is repeatedly absent from meetings. That is misfeasance or non-feasance in office. They're not doing the job. Malfeasance is a little different. It's wrongdoing by a public official. That's malfeasance, right? And misfeasance is a little different. It's a transgression, but with the lawful exercise of authority, right? So it could fit these comments into either that category of misfeasance or malfeasance in office, just depending on how they're written. I'm not too concerned with the category in which they're placed, because like I said, removal is largely a political process. It's a political appointment. Nobody was elected. This is a statutory issue where there is a vested right to the position as an appointment, but they're not an elected official, and the legislative body here has to say about removal as long as those comments fit within those standards, either misfeasance or malfeasance. And a lot of that will also come out during the public hearing, because any member of the Planning Commission to be removed has a right to defend themselves and a right to notice and an opportunity to be heard. So it's not a fun process to go through, but it is largely political rather than anything else.
I second the motion to hold the public hearing with Trustee McDonald's charges as written to remove Planning Commissioner Merlin from the Planning Commission. I would suggest at our next regular board meeting.
Can you, so that was a motion by Trustee McDonald to
conduct a public hearing to remove Craig Merlin from the Planning Commission and other township functions for malfeasance based on the charge of malfeasance as presented in this letter.
can I ask a question? So I haven't read your statement or seen it before. Is it accurate to say a motion to present?
It's a motion for public hearing.
Yes, and to present written charges. I'm only saying because I haven't seen I haven't seen the language of it. So I'm just wondering if we can make it more vague enough to say.
Well, the charge is malfeasance.
Mal or miss.
Malfeasance and or misfeasance.
So it's a motion by Trustee McDonald and supported by Clerk Slater to formally submit written charges to Commissioner
to Township Manager.
Who to present them against Commissioner Merlin and set a public hearing for comments made for a comment made at the December 6th Planning Commission meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Aye. And the reason for that is Sheriff Department did an investigation, and I don't know where law lays, so I just have to say nay.
Motion carried.
So those written charges, along with notice of the public hearing, will need to be delivered to Mr. Merlin, so he has notice. I'll work with Manager Swayze and getting.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight too.
Is there any right of appeal of that?
No, there is a right of not appeal necessarily, although generally what happens is it's an action for superintending control at the circuit court. Superintending control meaning that the circuit court would take control over the proceedings and then decide whether or not the removal was proper.
Thank you. Article 10, public comments. Anyone wishing to speak on any item is welcome. Please state your name, address for the record.
John Foss, 7374 Gratian. Would you please give us the names of the people who are on the strategic committee?
Manager Swayze, could you send those, get his address, please, and make sure he gets all those?
Would you inform us now who those people are?
No, he'll do it. I don't want to miss somebody if I'm rattling them off. I know we've got 2 members of the Planning Commission, 1 member of the DDA.
Me.
1 board member. He'll get those to you right away. I just don't want to mess up.
How was the decision made of who should be on this committee?
appoint one each of the supervisor, by the supervisor approved by the board. I select, for example, Trustee Nordhook is on the Planning Commission. He's also on the PFAS Advisory Committee. So he, I selected him because it sounds, well, one, because you're qualified and a great candidate, but two, it represents both.
Also, you mentioned an outside firm who was involved in this. Can you name that firm, please?
Yep. McKenna and Associates, and that was selected by Clerk Slater, Trustee Kessel, and Trustee Nordhook.
Okay, is there money set aside to do this?
Yes, this was all done at public board meetings.
And we voted unanimously for McKenna.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And I'll get that information.
Here's my card.
All right.
You can send it tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Anyone virtually?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read some comments. This one was from Paul Strauss. He kind of missed the other one, and I told him I'd read it. He said, I just tuned in during Scott Rissi's comments regarding the Thornapple River Special Assessment District Committee and wasn't quick enough to get my comment in. I could be wrong, but I'm assuming he is referring to me, Paul Strauss, 7474 Alaska Ridge. While it's true, I originally appealed the SAD to the tribunal. I did not appeal it the second time. Furthermore, I never received the application to be on the committee. There are already multiple members of the CTRA on the committee. I'm a boater who cares about the river just as much as everyone else who has already been appointed to the committee. I am paying the $300 on this upcoming winter tax bill and will continue to pay the assessment as long as I live on the Thornapple River. I feel I deserve to have a voice in how our money is spent. Thank you. And then there is a second comment from someone named Jennifer. With regard to, she actually has two comments. With regard to the Board of Review, it expires 12/31/2021 and must have an appointment. And then the second comment was 211.28 Board of Review for Township or City appointment, qualifications and terms of members, vacancy, eligibility, quorum, adjournment, deciding decisions, Board of Review committees, meetings, size, composition, and manner of appointment of Board of Review, alternate members, endorsement of assessment role, duties and responsibilities contained in MCL 211.29, single Board of Review, section 28. Number one, the Township Board shall appoint those electors of the Township who will constitute a Board of Review for the Township. At least 2/3 of the members must be property taxpayers of the Township. Members appointed to the Board of Review shall serve for terms of 2 years beginning at noon on January 1 of each odd numbered year. Each member of the Board of Review shall qualify by taking the constitutional oath of office within 10 days after appointment. The Township Board may fill any vacancy that occurs in the membership of the Board of Review. A member of the Township Board is not eligible to serve on the board. This is from Jennifer. I always get her name wrong and I apologize. Ginter.
Oh, that was her comment.
Yeah, that was her comment. So
okay.
She wanted to make that comment.
Got it. She's our assessor. So she's being helpful, not just rambling. Okay. Everyone's helpful, but she's especially helpful. Any other comments? Article 11, manager comments.
I have nothing tonight. Thank you, Supervisor.
Article 12, board member comments.
I always stand up and thank you guys for coming. Even though there's a diverse opinions out here, every one of them is important. And once again, as I always do, I encourage you to bring your neighbors to the next board meeting too, because you're why we're here. That's all I have.
Well said.
Well, you know, we had our fire station meeting this morning, and in order to get this thing moving, we were actually talking of doing a special board meeting to save 2 to 3 weeks on getting the bids out. But we need that committee to be working to keep this fire station on schedule. We're at that point where we can't be stopping for a stop in our committees. So I encourage the board to approve these appointments so we can keep going. And I do think we're scheduling at that special board meeting between Christmas and New Year's, so. And that's just to keep that fire station moving. So that's my comment. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I just want to ask either Grace or Ben, can we get a copy of the Planning Commission's notes ahead of time before they do their presentation, so we kind of can get familiar with it? I know they've spent a lot of time on that.
Are you talking about the Round Hill Committee report?
Yeah.
I have not seen them yet, but as soon as I get them, I will make sure that they are sent to all the board members. Okay.
Is that okay, Mike? Is there?
Yeah.
Okay. Good idea.
I have a comment.
Later.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas. I like your jacket. Very festive. We're adjourned. Thank you. All in favor for a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by Trustee McDonald, supported by Trustee Nordhook to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
We're adjourned. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Somehow I figured that's how I was gonna end up.
Thank you.
I know you know. But I just.
Did you just print this out of order?